Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Friday, all of today's guests brought to you by our friends at pastimesports.ca. Big weekend for Pastime and the number one spot to go for a Christmas gift for a sports fan.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a sports museum in there, Ricky. You get lost in there.
So much to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
Tonight we've been talking about it. Canucks, Utah, battling for the first time this season. We welcome back to the program someone we've had on before, Cole Bagley, Utah Mammoth, digital insider for KSL Sports. Cole, thanks for doing this today. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. Very good. Very good. Again, thanks for doing this. Mammoth in a second wild card spot right now. Record of 13-12-3 through 28 games. It seems like their season's been a bit up and down. What's your report card on the team so far?
Oh, probably a C, and that might even be, that might be even a little forgiving of, based on the way that they've played in certain games. But the biggest thing for this team right now is it's not a lack of skill that's really been the reasoning for the up and down. It's kind of been a lack of confidence. It's been a lack of consistency and a lack of energy in moments. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention the last couple games for the Mammoth, but they lose on Monday night to San Jose 6-3. They turn around on Wednesday and they beat the Anaheim Ducks 7-0. That is just the perfect example of kind of how this season has gone. Some nights they look like a team that can put 7 on you, and other nights they're a team that you can put 7 on them. And it really just comes down to how much effort they're willing to give, how locked in they're willing to play, and and if they can get that across the roster. And on Wednesday against Anaheim, that's what happened. They played with confidence, they played with urgency, and they beat one of the hotter teams in the NHL right now.
Yeah, you mentioned, I think, a couple times post-game talking about the heart. That big win, 7-0, as you mentioned. Anaheim, kind of the flavor of the year so far around the NHL. So was that the biggest difference from that previous slide they had been on to that big explosive win against Anaheim on Wednesday?
100%. If you sat down and you watched those previous 4 games, which they lost 4 in a row before beating Anaheim, they're not winning puck battles. They're not back checking. The forwards are not helping the D. The D are not connected with the forwards. Obviously, the power play is still a significant issue for this team right now. The worst in the National Hockey League. And I believe it was just 5.7% over the month of November. And they also had the worst record through November. But yeah, it comes down to heart. And I think that's a maturity thing here. Obviously, Utah is not as young as they were a season ago. They brought in veterans like Brandon Tanev and Vitek Vanacek and Nate Schmidt and a handful of other guys. But most of their star players are very young, right? The Logan Coolies, the Dylan Gunthers, JJ Peterka, even Keller and Sergachev, they're kind of stepping into that. I think they're primes, but they're still young, right? Like Keller's only been a captain in the NHL for 2 seasons. And so, yeah, to me, it's an energy thing, and I think it goes back to maturity. A lot of their best players are still learning what it takes to play consistently every night in the NHL.
6-9-2 on the road. What do you think are some of the issues for this hockey club away from Utah?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of comes back to what we've been talking about. They've really created an incredible relationship with the fan base here in Salt Lake City, which is why I think they're 7-3-1 at home. Delta Center has become, I think, a true, hockey environment, a real hockey barn. And they feed off of that energy. Whereas, when they're on the road, it's not as easy to do that. Plus, I can't remember exactly. I think they've had the one of the top 5 most difficult schedules through this point in the season in the NHL. They've played a lot of games on the road, a lot of back-to-backs, and they've been all over the place. I mean, if you look at this current road trip, 6 games, they're in Dallas, they're in St. Louis, they're down to San Jose, Anaheim, up to Vancouver, and then over to Calgary. And so, yeah, it's a condensed schedule. Everybody's dealing with that in the NHL, but Utah has had a little bit more of a rough go on the road, and as we approach January, things start to lighten up a little bit.
You mentioned you'd give the team a C. 2 questions here. What were the expectations? Was it a B, B+? And also, is the coach in trouble there?
Expectations since exit interviews last season was the playoffs. Right?
Yeah.
That has been from the top down, from the front office to the head coach to all the players, the expectations for this season were to make the playoffs, and they just haven't been playing that way. And so, yeah, I would say that, if I was expecting a grade, it would probably be a B or a B plus, especially, you don't just rip off 7 wins in the National Hockey League, especially in the manner in which they did it, beating Colorado in regulation, beating, Winnipeg back when, Connor Hellebuck was playing, and in the manner in which they did, it's scoring so many goals. Whereas now, it's almost a complete reversal. They've only won, I think, 5 games in their last 18 matchups. And so, yeah, things are tough. I would say that, the seat's getting a little warm, here in Utah, but just simply based on expectations. This is year 5 of a rebuild.
Yeah.
This is that transition period, right? This is a period where, okay, Utah has hit on some draft picks. They know that they can play. They're confident. They're starting to build up chemistry. Some of their more veteran players are stepping into their primes. There's no excuse not to make the playoffs. Now, nobody's expecting them to win a series, but getting over that hump, getting that experience so that, okay, a couple more of these young players start to come up, Daniil Boot, Maverick Lamoureux, Dmitry Simashev, maybe TJ Ginla a season from now, and you've got that young core coming up, rising up, and with playoff experience, that's what's going to help this team. And so that's why I go with a C or maybe even a C minus, because they have not played up to expectations, and they're more than capable of it.
Well, you talk about veterans for the young kids. Ian Cole, he's played 28 games. Tell us how his season has gone so far.
He's probably been Utah's most consistent and defensive anchor this year, which is kind of crazy. Not that he's incapable of it, but he's getting a little bit older, and to have guys on your team like Sean Dursey and Mikhail Sergachev, for Cole to be that anchor, to be playing so consistently well. He scored a short side top shelf the other night against Anaheim. That's a little uncharacteristic for Ian, but he's just been phenomenal, and he's been. I think the most value he brings is his voice in the room. He's a guy that's been through it, right? He's won 2 Stanley Cups. He's played in, a bunch of different markets, a bunch of different teams, and he's willing to just kind of tell it like it is. I've had a lot of good conversations with Cole this season, where he's laid things out, and the fan base was actually very appreciative of his comments, I believe last week or maybe the week previous, where they lost like their 3rd or 4th in a row. They had lost 3 at home. And, he just, on the record with the cameras in his face, just said, look, this is not good enough. We are not playing the way that we can. And that was very refreshing. So Cole has been everything I think that this organization could have hoped for and more, with just, obviously he renewed a 1-year contract last season. And he has been just fantastic, both on and off the ice.
Wow. We can't let you go, Cole, without talking about something that Canuck fans here are envious of, and that's that brand spanking new practice facility Utah has that they opened in September. First of all, how impressive is it? And second, what's it done for the hockey community in Utah to have that facility?
I got to give a shout out to Vancouver fans, because anytime I post anything about the facility, the impressions that I get on my X tweets of those pictures or videos, it is like 90% Vancouver fans. Calling out the ownership and being like, hey, look, we need one of these, right? Like, well, Utah's already got a better owner than Vancouver. So shout out to the Vancouver fan base for
we've used your content here, Cole. I promise you that.
It is unreal. I've had a walkthrough of the entire thing, and it is state of the art. It is as good as money can buy. The guys love it. And no, it's starting to really shift things in terms of the hockey community here in the state of Utah. I grew up, I'm from Utah. I grew up playing hockey here when I was about 6 years old, just after the Winter Olympics in 2002. And over these last 18 months, hockey has just exploded. It's been incredible to see. You go anywhere, you go to the restaurant, you go to the grocery store, you're seeing Mammoth hats and sweaters and T-shirts, and kids are really starting to fall in love with this game. I talked with Ryan and Ashley a couple weeks ago, and aside from obviously wanting to win a Stanley Cup and bring a Stanley Cup to Utah, their biggest desire is to grow the game here. They're currently in 10 pilot programs with other communities and private organizations in terms of trying to build more rinks, but they wanted to show people how it was done, and they went absolutely above and beyond in terms of this new facility, which should be opening to the public here shortly. And I will actually be signing up my 2 young boys in their Learn to Play program, because hockey's here. It's everybody's getting into it, and what better program to put the youth in than side by side with the NHL. So yeah, it's state of the art. And Vancouver fans, you can continue to be jealous, and I hope one day that you guys can have something like that.
Well, we look forward to the continued content on the practice facility and the Utah Mammoth as well. Cole, thanks so much for doing this today, and enjoy the game tonight.
Thanks, guys.